So today I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Miss Lesley Visser. Lesley is the most highly acclaimed female sportscaster of all time. Her long and prestigious trailblazing career has seen her as the first and only woman to be recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's in Canton, Ohio, I think, isn't it? In there. As the 2006 recipient of the Pete Rozelle Radio Television Award, which recognizes longtime exceptional contributions to radio and television in professional football. Along with her NFL Today reporter duties, she also contributes to the network's coverage of the NFL playoffs and the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Championship and Final Four. In 2004, Visser became the first woman sportscaster to carry the Olympic torch. What an honor. When she was honored by the International Olympic Committee, being hailed as a pioneer and standard bearer by the IOC. In 2009, she was voted the #1 female sportcaster of all time by the American Sportscaster Association. Visser is the only sportscaster in history who has worked on the network broadcast for the Final Four, Super Bowl, World Series, NBA Finals, Triple Crown, the Olympics, the U.S. Open, and World Figure Skating Championship. Visser was a reporter and contributor for the Super Bowl Today and CBS's Sports Super Bowls 35, 38, 41, and 44 pregame broadcasts. You've been very busy lady. Visser also has contributed reports for CBS News and served as a reporter for the HBO Sports, Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. She spent nearly 7 years with ABC Sports and was a sideline reporter for Monday Night Football, becoming the first woman assigned to the series and the first woman ever to report from the sidelines during a Super Bowl. In 1992, Visser became the first woman to handle the post-game presentation ceremony at the Super Bowl, and in 1989, she covered the fall of the Berlin Wall. That's a twist. The fall of the Berlin Wall, focusing on how sports would change in East Germany. Visser began her career in sports journalism in 1974 as a member of the Boston Globe sports staff on a grant from the Carnegie Foundation. 2 years later, she was assigned to cover the New England Patriots, becoming the first ever NFL beat writer. Visser earned her bachelor's degree in English from Boston College and received an honorary doctorate of journalism from her alma mater in 2007. She was born on September 11 in Massachusetts and resides in Bal Harbour, Florida. Welcome, Lesley Visser. I didn't want to shortchange you on
No, I feel like you must be so sick of me already. Thank you, Lily. It was great. It was great. Have you noticed in all of that, we must speak to Holly and the commissioner. What's the one sport I'm absent? Golf. So I would be privileged and proud to be involved in any aspect of golf. Maybe I've covered a couple of tournaments. But as you all know, thank you so much for having me. As you know, this is kind of the epicenter of the sporting calendar right now, right here. And many of you live here, so I don't think you take it for granted, but the Players' Championship, this setting, this city celebrates it, does such a great job, and I am really thrilled to be here and just to witness a part of it that is where many of you live. Okay, now I have a question. I need the glasses to read, but can I go with them, or is it really a bad look? Remember Meryl Streep when she won the Academy Award and she was trying to do this? So it's, I am taking up golf. Holly, if you would be so kind. I'm just taking it up. My husband is, of course, crazy for it. But I'm at that point where you go out to the range, and I'm at the point where I hit them till I hate them, which is about 10 balls. So I really, any advice any of you has for me at the end, I would be deeply appreciative. I want to thank a couple of people, and she'll be embarrassed, but the woman who put this program together, would you please acknowledge, Donna, you're here? Donna Fedorowicz. She's, of course, here. Donna Fedorowicz, along, I don't know if my old buddy Anna Laird is here, but she is so fantastic, too. Thank you to Estellas for putting this program together, and also to Merrill Lynch for sponsoring our lunch. This is such a fantastic program. I could feel from you some of the energy already from your breakout sessions. A women's initiative. This is so wonderful for me. Is it Philip who's here? Philip? You know, my whole life has been the opposite of Philip. So I am so with you, Philip. Some of you in this room I know personally. I think Julie Tyson is here and Donna Orender, and so I've been privileged to know some people associated with the PGA Tour, but I'm very grateful that you have had me. I'd like to point out Pamela Buford from Astellas. Where are you, Pam? You're here. Yes, congratulations. What an initiative. Pam was really the one who spearheaded this with the PGA Tour. With Donna, so thanks so much to you. And we've acknowledged Holly Fincham, who, of course, had a fantastic career in her own right, and now thank you for taking the time to come here. I was thinking on the way over here how the words Women's Executive Day, just those words would have been unheard of 40 years ago. Think in either your mother's time or your grandmother's time. Women really had three choices for jobs. They could be secretaries or teachers or nurses. And which I always thought, I'm a Bostonian, and remember the great Abigail Adams, she had a husband for a president, she had a son for a president, and she said, remember the ladies. Of course, it took 100 years for the 19th Amendment, but nonetheless, we move forward. But that fact, a Women's Executive Day, that here we are, all of us celebrating, and I know that many of you have faced the same challenges that I have faced, and I hope we have time at the end. I'd love to hear about some of what all of you have been through that brought you to a day that is the Women's Executive Day. I wanted to be, as Lily mentioned, I wanted to be a sports writer from the time I was 10 years old, which was the same as saying, Mom, I'd like to go to the moon. This was, my family moved, as I said, I was born in Boston, but I moved around a lot, and we were living in Cincinnati. This was 1963. I was 10 years old, and I said to my mother, I want to be a sports writer. And, you know, all of us mothers and friends and colleagues and sisters, you know how you can shape somebody with certain words? So this was pretty naked of me to say this to my mother when the job didn't even exist for women. And instead of dismissing it, I said, well, I want to be a sports writer. And she looked at me and she said, great. Sometimes you have to cross when it says don't walk. And isn't that amazing? So we all don't know what we get from our mothers, but it was pretty profound. I mean, I obviously was a strange child because, you know, really I would score, you know, games by myself, box scores of baseball games, and I truly had a passion for sports. But I remember when I was very little on Halloween, you know, other girls would dress up as Mary Poppins or Cinderella. Okay, I would go as Sam Jones, the 6'4" black guard for the Celtics. You think my mother didn't need a vodka? I mean, just picture, you're sending your child out, and I had a Celtic shirt, and I had my high-cut cons, and it was very, very unusual. I guess I should mention the part that one year I asked Santa for football shoulder pads, like NFL shoulder pads. Kind of odd. I went to Boston College determined to cover sports, and I have always lived by the great Ralph Waldo Emerson's credo, who said, nothing great can be accomplished without enthusiasm. And that is what I brought to all the challenges, really. I always looked at it like, and maybe for all of you, this will be helpful, if your passion outweighs the hurdles, because there will always be hurdles. It was, I wrote for the campus paper at Boston College. I was, of course, the first woman, only woman, and they gave me the highly coveted beat of freshman lacrosse. Right. Other people were going to the Cotton Bowl, right? But I had, but I loved it. And maybe also helpful for you is that all along my career, I tried to make every at-bat a quality at-bat. Even if it seemed like not a terrific assignment, and all of you have had assignments that you thought, oh, really? I have to do this? But they're all, one of the secrets, I think, to success in life is if you don't take the elevator, you take the stairs. And, a lot of those stairs are crummy, but if you can make every at-bat a quality at-bat, it usually can result in some level of success. I've had many profound moments, but one of them was my sophomore year at Boston College. Something really magical happened. I don't know how many of you are too young for this, but Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs. Wasn't that just, and we were jumping around the dorm room. I mean, it was so, personally, I regard it as it's the seminal moment of the women's movement because it wasn't just about sports. It was, gender politics. It was equal financial. It was sports. It was history. It was culture. And, I remember thinking, Billie Jean, she didn't have to do it, right? She already was a Wimbledon champion. She already was Sports Illustrated's Athlete of the Year. She didn't have to do that, but she did it for us. So I do think you do, Bob Knight, who I actually get along with that crazy man, he once said to me, a good soldier knows history. So I think along the way, it's right to acknowledge what Billie Jean did for all of us. A year later, I won this Carnegie Foundation grant, which the program that you're doing, the initiative is so important because people need help setting sail. They need help to get off the boat and clear the land. And God bless Estella's and the PGA Tour and Merrill Lynch that you are recognizing this because I started my career on a Carnegie Foundation grant. And what it was in 1974, they were grants that were available to women. You applied for them. They gave out 20 nationally to women who wanted to go into jobs that were 95% male, which in 1974 was, of course, all jobs. Imagine how sports writing kicked up out of the... I mean, a woman from Michigan got it for archaeology. It was then Radcliffe, not yet merged with Harvard, and a woman there got it for gynecology. And so many of your jobs, which you have to share with me, so many of you are among the first women doing what you're doing, or you have been blessed that a woman with vision hired you. But still in 2013, I can't tell you how many times I hear, wow, I've never been hired by a woman. I've never been supported by a woman. So I think there are lessons that we all can learn from our challenges. Some of them are internal. Like many of you, I had to adjust, either on the fly or, I'll tell you a couple of the stories, or very much in public. As the first woman to cover the NFL, okay, picture this. No ladies' rooms. That's right, because there were no other women. Okay, so and we're not talking 1820, we're talking 1975. But I remember I used to be at the game in the press box, and I would actually have to calculate in my head. Let's see, Patriots have the ball in the 1st and 20. Can I get down the elevator across the field to the one public ladies' room and get back up before they punted? So you appreciate this, right? No ladies' rooms. My credential, now here I was, the first woman to cover the NFL, and you'd get a credential to go to the game, and the credential right on there said, no women or children in the press box. Kind of diminishing, don't you think? And I mean, you all know all these stories, but of course there were no provisions for equality. A quarterback, you guys are too young for him, his name was Burt Jones. And this guy at the time was like George Clooney of the NFL. Great looking guy from Baltimore, had played at LSU, really good looking guy. And so now I'm outside in the parking lot waiting to do the story. And Burt Jones came out finally, and I started asking the questions. And he said, hey, you ever been to Baltimore? I could send you a shuttle ticket. Okay, you guys aren't going to believe this. So I go into my, absolutely not. This is my job. I take it seriously. And finally, this is a true story. Burt Jones hits me like this and says, hey, you're not that great. That's true. So I've definitely learned to roll with it. Whether or not you play sports is not a requisite for. I want to talk to you a little bit about the commissioner addressed how golf is so great. Golf, of everything I've ever seen, is the most natural connector. And my husband's crazy for it. They all play business. They make business deals, as you all know this. But I don't even think you have to play golf. I think if you're just aware to be around it, go to one of the tents that are so great, or go to a party that's watching the Masters. I want to talk to you a little about this. It's my experience that so many women are afraid of sports. They're afraid of the language of it. They think that sports is like this moving train, and I can't get on it. And I want to, if I can, try to help you because you don't have to know it, but you should know that sports is the language that men speak in this country. For a good reason. Sports belongs to everyone. I mean, everybody can have an opinion. Is this Phil Mickelson's week? It doesn't matter. You don't have to know golf intimately, but you can be a cab driver or a king, and you can have an opinion about LeBron James or Tom Brady. By the way, I sat next to Tom and Giselle. Okay. I know, I digress. Okay. I've known Tom for years, but I sat next to Tom and Giselle at a Knicks game. Okay, do you guys want the good news or the bad news? Okay, there is no good news. She's flawless. I mean, flawless. And believe me, I was up in her face, like trying to look at her. Really, she is flawless. But I know, what a drag. But it is such a, because it is the language, you all know it. Like, you all come in Monday morning. We saw the great young guy yesterday win up in Charlotte, and now he's qualified for here. And you don't necessarily have to know all about him, but just to know that on Monday morning, people are saying, did the Jaguars do well, or did Tim Tebow end up somewhere? What I want to share with you is you don't have to know the answers. You just have to be aware of the conversation. And maybe that could take some of the fear out of it for you, because I know women think, I have to diagram a safety blitz, or I have to know how to move. And you don't. I know how to move the runner over. You don't have to know any of that, but you just should know that it is the language that teachers are speaking, and bus drivers are speaking, and CEOs are speaking, and if you could take the fear for yourself out of it and just say, yeah, well, what are they talking about, or what hit you over the weekend? Because, as you guys all know, I think men have a fear of intimate conversations. You all know this. I have this cultural theory. Do you ever notice men always sit next to each other? Sorry, Phil, but you do. Do you ever notice that? Men sit next to each other in a golf cart. Men sit next to each other at a baseball game. Men sit next to each other at a football game, whereas we go to lunch and we do this. So that's why sports is, it seems benign, but it's very important in the culture. So just something for you to be mindful of. It's also, to my mind, it's got two things going for it, sports. One, it's the greatest passport. I have been all over the world because of sports. As Lily mentioned, CBS sent me to the fall of the Berlin Wall, which, at the time was the story of the century. And my little slice of it, okay, Walter Cronkite got the big assignment. But my little slice of it was how sports would change. Do any of you guys, are you too young to remember Katharina Witt, great skater? Well, she came from East Germany. And so she had been state-supported. It was the Stasi. Remember, all the swimmers were from East Germany, and actually the original Big Red Machine were the East German athletes. So, what a privilege to go there and to see people walked for days to get through that Brandenburg Gate to taste freedom. They came from Potsdam and Dresden. They lived, and just what we take for granted, freedoms here, was so powerful. So I do think sports takes you everywhere, little towns, big towns, in covering 34 NCAA tournaments. There is no college I haven't been to, no campus. I used to ride John Madden's bus with him for 10 years, and John always used to say, to really know America, you have to travel across it, not just fly, not just go here to Chicago, to San Francisco, to Dallas, but really travel through it. And that has been a privilege of mine, that traveling all over the United States and all over the world. And the other great, and golf this week proves it, the other great thing about sports is that it is the greatest meritocracy. Anyone here, you can't buy your son or daughter a starting position on Duke's basketball. The great thing about sports is you have to earn it. You cannot buy your way into it. And for that reason, I really have loved it. Even though the challenges for me have been enormous, I have really thought, well, everybody I'm interviewing or covering, they come from big schools, small schools, single mothers, rich families, but they've all earned it. And I think it's an ethic that, as women executives, would be something you might apply to yourself, that I'm going to earn it. Whatever it is, I don't want you to give it to me. I want to earn it. I have a couple of thoughts about the lessons of sports that I have learned that maybe you could apply in your own businesses. Last December, I was asked to speak in Doha, Qatar, which I don't know if you guys are familiar. I wasn't. Of course, I thought it was Qatar till I got there and was corrected 7 times. But they are a little finger off Saudi Arabia. They're actually the richest per capita country in the world. And it was fascinating to me because it is a Muslim country, but the women drive, the women vote, and the women go to college. And I have to say, I was really moved by that. You may not know, but there are 4 college campuses in Doha, Qatar. Georgetown is there, Carnegie Mellon is there, Cornell Medical is there, and Northwestern. Is it Northwestern's the other one? 4, but so, is it Northwestern that's there? No, thank you. But it is so, thank you. And actually, this is where sports takes you everywhere. The commissioner, the former commissioner of the NFL, Paul Tagliabue, is now the chairman of the board of Georgetown. And he called me up, he said, Lesley, I heard you going to Doha. Would you speak at Georgetown, their School of Foreign Service? And I will tell you how amazing this is what sports does, to be in this Muslim country, and there is Georgetown with a 40-foot-high Christmas tree. So I think the world, can be evolving, and sports takes you so many places. One of the interviews I did there was Oscar Pistorius, who did not mention he was going home to murder his girlfriend. I thought I was a good reporter, right? The guy left there really 2 weeks later and went home and murdered his girlfriend. Without the support of all of each other, I really believe we all wouldn't be here. I mean, you all know the numbers, right? Was it 19 women are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies? I think it's been decades now that women have been more than 50% of all college degrees, yet we are only 19% of board members. So you have to you have to be for each other, and a day like this is so gratifying to me. So where are we? There is not one path to success, but I'm going to tell you some lessons that I've learned through sports that maybe will help you in business. Everyone is a competitor, or should be. If you're all sitting here, you're a competitor. And the great Red Auerbach, who of course won 9 titles, the legendary coach of the Celtics, I just asked him what motivated him, and he said, it was so simple. He said, if you're going to compete, why not win? Which, just so simple, but so important. It wasn't easy for you to get here. All of you have scar tissue, as I do. And the one thing Mike Krzyzewski, the great Duke coach, said that he always impresses on his players is that what you do today, what you do right now, sets you up for later, and there will always be a later. So I've just been blessed. But these are the 5 areas that have really impressed me the most where sports can be distilled into business. Number 1 is brand awareness. When you put your uniform on of your company, when you put on a Stellus, what does that say? What does Merrill Lynch say? Aren't you proud? Whatever your company is, you put that uniform on and you represent it. And your brand awareness is so significant. The second thing I learned are goal setting. Every single NFL team starts out in August, and their one goal is to raise that Lombardi trophy at the Super Bowl. For your companies, what are your goals? Third, are you putting out a good product? There aren't many places in sports to hide, which is so great. You know, if you're lazy or you don't pay attention or you're late, you don't start. So for your own companies, what product are you putting out and what product do you want to put out? The fourth is hard work. It seems obvious, but it's really significant. Great athletes, like all of you here, you wouldn't be here. They challenge themselves. How am I pushing myself? How can I be better? Whether or not anyone's looking, what is it that I can do that is harder? How can I work harder? And the final one is mental toughness. It's okay to have some self-doubt. We all do, and I think, I used to think the great Bill Russell threw up before playoff games, so I used to think, hey, it was okay for Bill Russell. It's okay for me. But champions hang tough. They don't wait for the change. They are the change. I have one thing I want to leave you with, and I'd love it if you have any questions. The greatest advice I ever got, you know, some things you can hear, and they really do change your brain a little. The best advice I ever got came from the great Billie Jean King. Billie Jean was always in the Wimbledon final. I had the privilege of covering 15 Wimbledons. And one time I said to her, Billie Jean, what is the pressure of always being in the Wimbledon final? And she looked at me, and it actually changed me. She looked at me and she said, are you kidding? Pressure is a privilege. And I want all of you to embrace that. So I want to thank all of you today for the pressure and the privilege. Thank you. I don't know if... Sorry. Thank you. Okay, and my feet are killing me. Oh, did you get some new furniture? You see it coming, right? And she says on network television, don't be ridiculous, Betty Stova, my new coach. That's right. That's right. Yep. Holly, if you tell Sean McManus about that, I'm going to kill you. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Brent's head hit the table. They played it at the seminar every year for like 20 years. But, see, so you guys can survive anything.
I have a question for you, Lesley.
Sure,
First of all, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You had to be extremely courageous to be one of the first in a man's world. That is the machoist point of the man's world in sports. What was the turning point where you realized that people took you seriously and that you gained respect?
Oh, that's a great question. I think when I first started, like I said, my passion outweighed the hurdles, and I think there is something for those of you who are younger in the room. There's something about you can be protected by your innocence when you're really young. But no one lands on Normandy by himself. I mean, I had the Boston Globe behind me, and then I had CBS and for ABC for a while. But I think it took a while that from when I was hoping it went well in the beginning. I was hoping it went well and that, you know, I wouldn't be humiliated and then it took, I would say, a few years before, you know, at first, my very first question to the coach then of the New England Patriots, 1975, Chuck Fairbanks, my first question to him was something about one of his linebackers, and the first thing he said to me was, you know, you ought to go to lunch with my daughter. You're about the same age. So, but I don't know, I tried to make it work for me, okay? You know, I can be tougher than this. I mean, certainly people had it tougher than me all these years. So it did, though. Thank you for asking. I think it took a couple years before I really felt, okay, I'm in control here.
Hi, Lesley.
Hey, Pam.
Really enjoyed your talk. You talked a lot about your experiences, and you seem to be a person that really does understand sports, some of the language you use. And some of the things we've been talking about is how much of how successful you are is part of what you know and being good, and how you present yourself and gaining that credibility. So can you talk a little bit about how you balance that between an obvious knowledge of sports, but also being able to leverage that presence to be able to get where you are?
Well, it's really no different. You are the initiative of urology at Estellas, and you know that language, and you speak it. You have a passion. I had a genuine passion for sports, and I knew that I knew what I was looking at, which I think lots of places you come from, but in Boston, we hate frauds. That's the one thing, we hate frauds. And it was a very competitive paper. I was there. The Boston Globe had published the Pentagon Papers, legendary sports section. So what I felt what worked for me was I never said anything that was something I didn't know. Like, for instance, now I've been 4 decades of covering sports. I have never been on that side of the sideline. I've never been in a huddle. So it is not appropriate for me to say what goes on in an NBA huddle or an NFL huddle. Many of you either are athletes or you've known athletes. Donna Orender was a great athlete. People have been in huddles that I haven't, and I think it worked for me that I never went beyond what I knew.
I'd love to know if you met Walter Payton, and I loved how they called him Sweetness.
And he was. You know, matter of fact, last night we were talking, did Barry Sanders maybe not want to break Peyton's record because he was such a legend? Yeah, he was very good to me. He was Walter Payton, for those of you who don't know, great running back for the Chicago Bears, and a legendary gentleman. And yes, he was, you know what's something about when you see athletes on TV? You know how you have an instinct about them? And it's usually true. Like, if you think you're going to like Walter Payton or a running back or a player, chances are if you meet him, you will. Because the sports, like I said before, you can't really hide. You can't hide who you are and your character, I think. Who was it, the great Justice Stewart Potter? Who was the one who said, or was it Whizzer White? Darn. Okay, one of them said, sports doesn't build character, it reveals it. And I thought, will you look that up for me, Pam? It's either Whizzer White or... So is that any more questions, or I will leave you to the rest of your lunch? You have another?
Thank you for today. How were you introduced to sports, and what fueled your passion?
Oh, thanks for asking. I was just a child observer, like everyone always said, oh, well, you know, where did you play? And I mean, I played high school. It's embarrassing when you work with world-class athletes. You know, I was a stiff field hockey player. But I just had a love of it. You know, I really, I would watch, I'm a child of the Red Sox. I would watch games by myself. I would follow sports, the Packers. I always loved the Packers. So I would just follow it myself. And from really the time I was little, like, I can't remember a time I didn't love sports. And, you know, I have to tell you, it's been great company for me. You know, it's fun. You know, I can just turn on a game. I can pass a field with John Madden when I took the bus all those years. By the way, John Madden was so brilliant. I was telling the guys at dinner last night, this is how unusual John Madden was. We'd be riding along through Nebraska on that bus or something, and John would out of nowhere say something like, "Dark chocolate, I don't get it. It's like they got halfway to milk and quit." He was Mark Twain, you know, really brilliant observer, brilliant. But we would pass a field, a high school game or something, we would just stop and go. So yeah, he was very special. Sure.
I have a question. Once you became a sportscaster, did your mom create a new quote for you?
Thanks. My mother, how bad was this? I come from, one half my dad is Dutch, and the other half I'm Irish, big Irish family. So the first time I was on CBS, of course, my 9,000 Irish relatives are, this close to the TV. And you ready for this? The first time CBS spelled my name wrong. I mean, it was so, what was that, 1984 or 5? But I think she was pretty proud. She was an English teacher, so as long as my grammar was correct, she was thrilled. Okay, this is going to sound obnoxious, but it's true. Tom Brady kisses me every time he sees me. That's right. He does. So your second question first. He is really a gentleman. Do you know when he first went to the Patriots, how cool is this? He lived with his sisters. He really is, he is. He is a great, great guy. So, for that. And I root for the health of them. I've seen so much. I was on the field when Troy Aikman had the concussion, and they put the smelling salts underneath, and they said, it was Dallas, the NFC Championship, and they said, Troy, where are you? And Troy said, I'm in Henrietta, Oklahoma. And I was right there for that. Steve Young, I did his game, the very last game. He had a concussion against Arizona. He never played again. So I would say now, a lot of them are friends over the years, and I root for their health. Thank you. Hey, thank you, guys. You were a blast.
Leslie, thank you for that really fun and inspiring speech. And as a token of our appreciation from the tour, we hope you will enjoy this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.